Hi, I'm Greta Oliver. Welcome to the Educate You podcast, your roadmap to learning tips, techniques, and strategies to enable your student to successfully navigate the road to and through higher education. Hello. Today's guest on the Finding Tutors segment of Educate You is Carina Turner. Carina Turner is a graduate of Ohio University and Loyola University Chicago. She is a licensed school psychologist and currently works as a school health and wellness counselor at A+ Arts Academy in Columbus, Ohio. Prior to that, she was a school psychologist for the Columbus City Schools. Carina has also taken on the task of tutoring for students who are in need of her services by working independently and through the Chicago Lights tutoring program. Carina is passionate about helping students and working on new strategies to make the learning process easier for students she has worked with. Today, she's speaking to us about tutoring and its advantages for college students based on her experience working in this capacity. Please join me in welcoming Carina Turner. Hello there.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
You are absolutely welcome. So glad you can join me today. And so we're talking about tutoring, and we've been talking about advocates for students on the college campus. And so having someone that is able to provide tutoring at college is very, very helpful. And so how important do you really think tutoring is to students in college?
I think that tutoring is extremely important. Even if you think that you already have pretty solid academic skills, there's always a different way of thinking. There's always something that maybe someone understands a little bit better than you. And so peer tutoring in particular, but any tutoring that you can access can be the thing that makes the difference between you somewhat understanding the material and being able to pass and you really excelling in your studies.
Okay, so what would you constitute, or what would be the definition of peer tutoring?
For me, peer tutoring would be getting tutoring, getting lessons, studying with someone else who is currently studying the same thing as you. That doesn't mean that they have to be in the same class as you at that moment, but someone else who is in your field of study, someone else who has already been through those classes and kind of understands what it takes to be successful learning that content. As opposed to receiving tutoring from a professor or someone who may be a little bit more removed from what is currently being taught.
Okay. And so you said that you thought that that would be, more beneficial. Why do you think that that would be more beneficial to college students today?
Being in education right now, I realize that the way that we present information has changed quite a bit over time. And there is always the possibility that someone who went through those same classes 10 years ago learned that information in such a significantly different way that it's hard to bridge that gap between why you're not quite understanding the content and what you need to know to be able to understand that content. Someone who is currently going through it or has more recently gone through it is more likely to understand where that gap is. And especially when you're talking about students who may have come from high schools that didn't have as strong as a curriculum in whatever it is that you may need assistance with, it can be very daunting to go and ask for help. And somebody that already feels like they're on your level is a little less intimidating than somebody that you feel has already made it.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. Thanks for clearing that up.
Of course.
Okay, so what should a student do? First of all, what steps should a student that's on a college campus, maybe they're a freshman, first year student, and they find out that, they're not understanding the material, what should they do first? What steps should they take?
The very first thing that I would probably do is to go to your professor. Professors are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the resources that are on campus. I was fortunate in that I had not only great professors, but I had great advisors through my scholarship programs who could also assist me. And it was very easy to find tutors that way. But I realized that not all campuses have that. So the first step would be to ask your professors, ask other students in the class that are with you who seem to be doing well, if they're willing to sit down with you. There are multiple ways that you could get tutoring, whether that be peer tutoring or assistance in other ways.
Okay, great. So, um, do you think there's a connect, I want to say, between students who have had to receive tutoring, like on the high school level, or maybe, they've been on different IEPs or plans and had tutoring throughout their elementary and high school career? Do you think there's a connect between that and then them needing tutoring once they get to college?
Oftentimes, yes.
Okay.
Um, as a school psychologist, I tend to work with
Mm-hmm.
lots of students with disabilities. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the questions that I get most frequently is, how are they going to survive college?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the reality is, learning a different way doesn't mean that you can't learn. It means you learn a
Okay.
different way. And
Okay.
so
Great.
if you needed assistance in high school, if you needed assistance in middle school, there is a very
Mm-hmm.
large possibility that that transition from the way you have to function in high school to be successful and the way you have to
Mm-hmm.
function in college to be successful will be a little bit tricky. And you may need some guidance on study skills. You may need
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
guidance on note-taking skills. There's no shame in that. There's
Right.
no shame in saying, I learn a different way than this professor is teaching. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, I'm going to need somebody to help me figure out how to bridge the gap between what I need to do and what he's currently giving me or she's
Right.
currently giving me.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it is more common if you've had academic struggles in the past to need
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more assistance as you're transitioning into college learning because the rigor is so much more.
Okay, so I'm just really glad to hear you say that because I know a lot of people that have struggled in the past or may have learning disabilities are kind of reluctant to, even make the step to college because they feel like they won't be able to be successful. But one thing that we can agree on is that they learn differently, but that does not mean that they cannot learn. And so it
Absolutely.
would be really important for those students to take advantage of the offices on campus, the departments on campus, disability services, academic tutoring, and everything that is available to them so that they can be ready to face whatever they're going to face in their classes and be able to combat any struggles that they may have. So that's really good to hear. So, what do you think students, especially those that may have struggled in the past, should do? Like, should they have a game plan going in to their classes to kind of, you know, make sure that they are able to stay on top of them, or should they already have something planned out? And if they should have something planned out, do you have any tips as to what that might be?
um, well, I think it's very hard to plan for a situation you've never been in. And
Mm-hmm.
every college is different, every
Okay.
class is different.
Right.
But I remember a very wise advisor of mine who told us all, when you walk into that classroom, you sit in the front row. You make sure the professor knows your face, knows
Mm-hmm.
your name, that you're there on time, that you're respectful, that you're engaged during class, so that when you
Mm-hmm.
do start to struggle, it is more likely that that professor is going to acknowledge that it is not a struggle due to disinterest,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a struggle due to truly not understanding the material. And they're going to be more willing to help you. So my first tip to all students, even in high school, when they transition, I work with kindergarten through eighth grade right now. And when they transition
Mm-hmm.
from eighth grade into high school, I always tell them, if at all possible, make sure every single teacher knows your name that
Mm-hmm.
first week in a
Mm-hmm.
positive way, because they need to know you in order to believe that you really, really want to be there. Um,
Right.
that would be my first suggestion. Make
Okay.
sure that those professors know you. My second suggestion would be any adult, former student, aunt, uncle, parent
Mm-hmm.
who was formerly at that college. If you have any way to form those connections, even outside of your
Mm-hmm.
department, do that. Because
Mm-hmm.
those are the people who will know some of the lesser well-known resources that are around that campus.
Okay.
And that
Okay.
can be the difference between you
Mm-hmm.
kind of struggling to find those things on your own and you already having that information at your hand. And then finally, if you are a student who comes from a district um, or a school that maybe doesn't have the best academic record, Understand that when you made all A's there, you made all A's with the curriculum that you were given. And that does not lessen anything about you, but that doesn't mean that you have everything you need. So there is no shame in taking some community college classes over the summer. There is no shame in going on Coursera, which offers free classes, free introductory classes a lot of times in a wide variety of studies. There's no shame in doing a little bit of that prep work, making sure that you understand the basics of whatever field it is that you're studying, so that when you walk in, you don't automatically feel like you're behind. That would have made a huge difference for me if I had known about some of those resources. And I realize there are more resources now than when I went to college in terms of being online. But it would have made a big difference if I felt a little bit more confident in my studies. I would have felt more confident in asking for help for those gaps in the first place.
All right, that's some great advice. And so I'm hoping that our viewers are listening and I mean taking notes themselves as to ways in which their student can be more successful in college. And so do you have anything else that you're just burning to say to our viewers today about tutoring or about anything that has to do with the areas that they need help in?
I think I would just like to emphasize again, there is no shame in needing tutoring. Even if you think you understand something, what I always tell my students currently, if you can't explain it to someone else, you don't understand it as well as you think. And so everybody needs to continually reinforce new knowledge. That is a normal part of human learning. And tutoring is the thing that ensures that you understand it at a level that you can then use that information, no matter how it's presented to you later. That's the true measure of intelligence. Can you use the information that you have? So tutoring really just strengthens your knowledge base. It has nothing to do with your skills, your capabilities, your inherent intelligence. It is about, do you want this? Do you want it so bad that you're willing to spend that extra time with someone else, maybe giving you a deeper perspective, maybe helping you to better understand what it is that you already thought, giving you more context. All of those things matter. And for me, even as a tutor, but also as a student who received tutoring, those things make a huge difference. They really do. So I would encourage anybody who feels like they only have a cursory understanding of what they're studying, go get some tutoring. It could be 1 or 2 sessions. It doesn't have to be long term. But tutoring can make the difference between you really excelling and you just kind of passing.
Right. Great, 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 great. That is great advice from somebody who gives tutoring as well as have received tutoring. And so the other thing that I'd like to kind of just recap at the end of this episode is that it really is all about how bad you really want it. It's how bad you really want to do well in the class, how bad you really want to be successful in all your classes, and how bad you really want that college degree. And that will kind of dictate what steps you take to be able to reach your goals. So thank you so much for coming and talking to us about tutoring today. And we just wish you the best in all of your endeavors with your students that you work with on a daily basis.
Thank you so
much for your information. Glad to have you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you for joining us today on Educate You. If you wish, you can send me your questions or comments about the college going process or the podcast contents by sending an email to drgreta@gretaoliverconsulting.com. Also, beginning each week after the podcast airs, check for a companion blog on my website's blog page at gretaoliverconsulting.com. My book, College Roadmap, Essential Tips for First-Time College Students and Their Families, is available for sale on Amazon.com. Join us next week for another tip or strategy to make the road to higher education easier for your student.